Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to Book Summary 5, the 5-Minute Summary channel. I'm Sammy, your host, and today we're diving into Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky, a complex and philosophical novel often hailed as one of the first existentialist works. This short but profound book offers an unflinching exploration of human nature, freedom, and the deep conflicts within the human psyche. Told through the voice of a bitter and isolated narrator, Notes from Underground examines what it means to live authentically in a world that feels indifferent and chaotic. Let's delve into this haunting and thought-provoking story, so you'll feel like you've read it cover to cover. The novel is divided into two parts, both narrated by an unnamed man, often referred to as the underground man living in a cramped and dilapidated basement in 19th-century St. Petersburg. The underground man is a former government clerk who has retreated from society. He is deeply introspective, cynical, and self-loathing, wrestling with his own contradictions and the absurdities of the world around him. His voice is both philosophical and confessional, creating an intense and intimate portrait of a man trapped in his own mind. The first part of the novel, titled Underground, is a monologue in which the narrator reflects on his philosophy of life. He begins by asserting that he is a sick man and a spiteful man, though he admits he isn't even sure if his spite is genuine. From the outset, he rejects the idea of rationality as the ultimate guide to human behavior, arguing that people are not driven solely by logic or reason. Instead, he believes that humans are deeply irrational, often acting against their own interests simply to assert their free will. The underground man critiques the prevailing ideas of his time, particularly the belief in progress and the utopian ideals of rationalism. He mocks the notion that humans can achieve happiness through a perfectly organized society or by following strict moral codes. In his view, such systems ignore the complexity and unpredictability of human desires. For him, true freedom lies in the ability to defy logic and reason, even if it leads to suffering. This rejection of rational determinism is one of the novel's key existential themes, as Dostoevsky explores the tension between individual freedom and the constraints of societal norms. In the second part, titled Apropos of the Wet Snow, the underground man recounts specific events from his life, offering a glimpse into how his philosophical musings play out in practice. This section is more narrative-driven and highlights his interactions with others, which are fraught with hostility, self-sabotage, and a desperate longing for connection. Through these episodes, Dostoevsky shows the devastating effects of the narrator's isolation and his inability to reconcile his inner world with the external reality. One of the most striking episodes involves a dinner party with former colleagues. The underground man, desperate for validation but filled with contempt for others, attends the gathering only to alienate himself further. His erratic behavior and biting remarks expose his deep insecurity and his inability to form genuine relationships. The dinner ends disastrously, with the underground man humiliating himself and storming off, reinforcing his isolation and self-hatred. Another pivotal moment occurs when the narrator encounters Liza, a young prostitute. In a rare moment of vulnerability, the underground man attempts to connect with her, delivering a passionate monologue about the degradation of her life and the possibility of redemption. Liza, moved by his words, begins to see him as a figure of hope. However, when she visits him later, his insecurities and fear of intimacy resurface. Instead of offering kindness or connection, he lashes out cruelly, driving her away and deepening his own despair. The relationship with Liza is particularly significant because it highlights the underground man's inner conflict. On one hand, he craves love and acceptance. On the other, he rejects it out of fear and self-loathing. His inability to embrace vulnerability reflects his broader struggle with the contradictions of human nature. Through this tragic interaction, Dostoevsky captures the painful irony of a man who sabotages his own happiness, even as he yearns for it. By the end of the novel, the underground man has retreated further into his solitude, resigned to his isolation and bitterness. His reflections remain unresolved, leaving readers with more questions than answers about the nature of freedom, morality, and the human condition. This open-ended conclusion underscores the novel's existential themes, inviting us to grapple with the same questions that torment the narrator. Notes from Underground is not just a story about one man's descent into alienation. It's a philosophical exploration of the tensions between reason and emotion, freedom and determinism, and individuality and society. Dostoevsky challenges readers to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, forcing us to examine the contradictions and complexities within ourselves. The underground man, though deeply flawed, serves as a mirror for our own struggles with meaning, authenticity, and connection. Thank you for tuning in to Book Summary 5, the 5-Minute Summary channel. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Notes from Underground, please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, happy reading. And remember, the search for meaning often begins in the darkest corners of the human soul.